So thank you everyone, first of all, for coming through, and a big thank you to So Creative Summit for having us here. It's such an honor, and our hearts are full, and we are really excited just to share and learn and share and learn from everyone. So before we get into it, we're just gonna, I guess, introduce ourselves, show you some of our work, and then we can jump into like the core value of this talk. So, first off the bat, it is I. So my name's Russell Abrahams. I'm an illustrator and artist based in Cape Town. And I guess like the core of everything is that I get to make pictures and draw and really like express myself through my work and make a living off it. And that's such an important part of everything. I studied graphic design and went straight into freelancing. When was it? I finished 2014. Yeah. So I finished 2014, went straight into the freelance world, and lived a very like hard life, trying to like go against the grain and just how can I say it? Just like live out my dreams, and that led to not a lot of work in the beginning. And it's like for the longest time, I kind of had to like find my own path, find my own voice. But like, you know, like with patience and persistence, things fall into place. So I'm gonna run through my work quickly. On your right, over here.
The same as yours.
Is it the same? Yeah. But yeah, so on my right, it's my, I guess, latest project and something I'm really proud about. I'll deep dive into it a bit later, but it's the collaboration with H&M. And everything about this project really felt like organic, and it just, I think it sat with like my values as an artist. So I'm just gonna quickly go through my portfolio. I always get awkward showing people work, but I'm gonna run through it quickly. So I work in a very, I guess, like pop arty, super flat kind of style. It came from like years of trying to find my voice, and over time, slowly but surely, things kind of fell into place. So this is a project, or the top right is a project with Harvard Business Review, and it only happened recently, and it's my first editorial piece that I've worked on at Yay Abe. And it's something I dreamed about from the very beginning. Like I think when I was studying graphic design and illustration, in my mind I was like, okay. But yeah, so I think the important part to maintaining integrity when working with brands is to be sure of your own values, right? And how can I say, like I've seen this play out over and over again with my work, and sorry, and I think it's something we have to be so conscious of. Brands see this, we see this, and it's this, how can I say, this mutual thing, sorry. Wait, what's happening there?
Yeah, so I think to touch on what Russ was saying, the way that you maintain your integrity is by first knowing what is important to you, and that's what you know what to protect. That can guide you in all the work that you do. So something that's important is to make sure that the brands that you are working with align with your values. And I know this is not always possible, you know, to choose your ideal brand that you are going to work with. That comes as something that we work towards over time. But I think with what happens when your values and what you care about and what's important to you aligns with what the brand cares about and what's important to them, that's when you get the best work. So if you look at any of the projects where brands are collaborating with creatives, the best work really does come from having that alignment. And I think when that alignment is missing, people can often see through that campaign, and it seems really inauthentic and just misaligned. If you have someone with completely different values working with a brand that's not aligned, I think a lot of us, even as consumers, can look at it and say, like, it doesn't make sense, or it just feels like fake in a way.
Yeah, and I guess like living and working with like a digital strategist by my side all the time, I've learned a hell of a lot from Chris. I think I'm really blessed to just have her by my side and have her share her knowledge. So something that's really important that Chris has kind of like taught me and affirmed me about is like just being sure about who I am as an artist and an illustrator. I think perhaps over the last like 3 or 4 years, prior to meeting Chris, I was quite like fixated, and I think a lot of us are, as illustrators and artists and creators, we're quite fixated on the idea of like having followers and like being famous or whatever this is, and Chris taught me this, like, or she kind of like shared this idea with me that like I don't need to chase that. I just need to focus on myself and like believe in the work that I want to put out there. And I've really, I think in the last 2 years, I've seen this play out amazingly in my life. And I've threw the idea away of trying to have like 20, 30, 40,000 followers on Instagram. I think brands really gravitate to good work, and it's something that in the industry I'm seeing there's this switch with a lot of brands where they say like, cool, like we don't need person A with like 50,000 followers to do good work. Like we can pay for that reach and we can put money in to get the work out there. But what they're trying to focus on is like the work. And that's been so reassuring to me. Because I used to sit and be like, oh man, like there's this campaign and they sent me this brief, but like I don't fit the description in my mind for like who should be on that podium, I guess. And it's been like an interesting journey. But I think it's important to just be honest with yourself and make the work that you want to make. Because I think people see through a lot of things. It's like we could have an illustration project and we could have influencer, whoever, that doesn't paint, doesn't do this. And it's like perhaps the old way was to put work into their hands. But I think over time, the audience and people in general are a lot more aware, and good and honest work always like prevails, I think. So on the topic of the power of proactivity comes this, and it's quite interesting. I've always had a keen interest in streetwear as of late, maybe the last like 4 or 5 years, if not longer. Dillian is here from Creative Nestlings, and I worked with him like maybe 9, 10 years ago on a streetwear collection, and it's like that same work, the same work we did back then, it's like, we had a chat about it earlier, like how it's still a common thread in my work, as much as I've evolved as an artist since then. But on my right, it's a project I worked on, I guess during lockdown, where I just wanted to make T-shirts, and after losing my mom to COVID, I was like, let's just like have this release, and I want to make T-shirts and celebrate her, and just have this like output. And then I made that, and I was like, I quite like it. Like it's quite cool, and it feels good. Like it's the work I wanted to see out of myself. The interesting part with proactive work is that I think you show clients and you show people, you show the world like your value as an artist and like the work you want to put out into the world. And from that, it translates into like working with Adidas and H&M, and we were laughing, or I had a good laugh putting this slide together, because it's like, I am the back model for T-shirts and illustrations. And it's, but it's just interesting, and I think it's because it all comes from an honest place, and people can kind of, I think brands and sitting with art directors, they get the vibe. They understand like what I want to do. So I think to like anyone sitting here, really put effort and take pride in making your own projects, funding your own projects. Like if it's painting on whatever, or literally just do what you want to do. Like, I can't stress that enough. I think every project I've worked on this year has come from, like, hey, we saw that thing you did on Instagram, like, who was it for? And it's like, oh, no, I drew that in bed. Like, that was just like a purely for fun. And I'm always shocked when brands go like, oh, okay, like, cool. So no one's ever done that before with you. And I'm like, no. And then they put money behind it, or they produce it. So I never used to do that, and I'll get into it a bit more later. Never used to do that, but it's something that's definitely become a constant theme throughout my work.
And then my side, the same, similar story. So the Sports Illustrated series that I did was a proactive passion project that I did for myself. And that's actually what the work that Adidas saw that triggered them to, come to me and say, we like your sports punch needle work. We'd like to do something similar for our Canal Walk women's store. So I think the key here, or the message here, is when you're putting yourself into your work, your values are coming through in that, things you care about are coming through in that. And by doing that, it puts it out to the world, and people see it, brands see it, and the more you do that, that can lead to collaborations and work with brands that are aligned to what's important to you and what you care about.
Yeah. Cool. So it's empowering to demand your worth, and I think this is something that a lot of us struggle with. I've struggled with it, still struggle with it, but I think as young, creative people, we taught to like express ourselves and like make cool things and make pretty things, whatever. But at the end of the day, like, it's almost like hard to, or how I feel is, or how I've felt is that it's almost hard to like demand your worth when someone's letting you like make a painting, and it's like, it comes under this like guise of like, no, but it's a blessing, like you should be happy that we're giving you this opportunity. And that's complete nonsense. And I think whether it's demanding your worth in your workspace, whether that be as a minority or woman, person of color, whatever, it's like, I think we all owe it to ourselves to like demand, like, and I think demand is like the key word here, and like be like outright about it, because I think we do a lot. Like, we really like end up doing backflips for clients and for our bosses or whoever. Like, and when it comes to, I think when it comes to our worth, it's so monetary, and it's such a hard conversation. I still get shy about it. Like, sometimes going up to a client and saying like, hey, listen, like, this is my price. And oftentimes you met with like, okay, cool, like, I get that, but this is like what we're willing to pay you. And navigating that conversation it's such a tricky thing, because at the end of the day, we just want to like survive off the work that we're doing. But yeah, it gets tricky. So yeah, so I think the main thing here, and it's like, I think we can get into this more when we do the Q&A, but I really think that like us young people in South Africa, when we go into these boardrooms or have Zoom calls with people, like, let's not be shy about like trying to claim like what is ours. And it might come, like, as I say this, it might come from a place of privilege and a place of like someone that's like been doing this for a long time. And without a doubt, like, I've done work where I probably should never have put pen to paper, but it came from this like absolute hunger to try and like make it, I guess, whatever that is. But I remember doing projects for like big brands, and it's like, we have 500 rand, and I go, "Aye, cool." I just do it, and it like hurts your soul. Like, it really just like knocks your wind out. But over time, I think we can learn from people that have done it before us. And I have a network of illustrators and friends and we have chats about like, how do we progress as this like creative force in the industry? And I think it really is about like networking with your peers and being open and honest about what we're charging. And I think a lot of us get so shy about those conversations because we don't want to not get the bag. But it's so important to have these conversations so that when person B goes into the room, they know what like the other person was quoting. Because brands will come for you and they will like lowball you completely because it's capitalism and it's just about making money. So I think like if you have any friends that you can like rely on, really just like make little WhatsApp groups, chat to each other. The more we do this, the more we raise the bar in terms of like what our worth is. But yeah, I'm very keen to jump into this conversation in the Q&A.
Yeah, and then I think those 3 values that you all thought about earlier and that you've written down, those don't have to be your only values, and those don't have to be the values that now carry you through until the end of your career and the end of your life. I think it's important to note that your values can change over time as you change as a person and you grow and think different things are important to you. And then as those change, so will your decisions and your work will change as well as your values. So for example, something that wasn't so important to me before and is becoming more and more valuable to me now is my own time outside of work or outside of creating. Like that personal time to myself is something that I really value more and more now. And that means in any of my decisions about my career or the work that I'm doing, knowing that that's an important value means that I'm making different decisions now than I maybe would have before. So I think just staying self-aware and keep doing that inner reflection and seeing what is important to you that might change over time, and just keeping track of that so that can help guide you in your decisions and the work that you do.
Yeah, and I think I'm not sure if I can jump into this, but so when I met Chris, found out she was this amazing digital strategist, and then she was on her way to do her MBA, and it was something that was like really important to her. I'm not sure if you want to elaborate, or can I keep going?
Yeah, I think in my career, I just wanted to, climb every step of every ladder and become this, whatever's at the top of the career ladder. I wanted my MBA. I wanted, just to be CEO level of whatever I'm doing, and that's what I valued. And the decisions I made and all the work that I did reflected that. So that meant burnout, working late hours, pouring my soul into other people's companies and agencies. And that's something that I thought was really important to me, and it was a goal that I wanted, so I was willing to, make the sacrifices to do that. And over time and over lockdown, and as I've got into different interests and started doing the rug making, and also just being with Russell, I think that has become less important to me, and that's something I value less. And now the most important thing to me is time and, just living life. So, and that's not to say that I've lost my ambition or I don't want to succeed or, reach the top of any of my careers. It's just that my value set has changed, and what I see as success now is having time to be able to live and do things that I want to do rather than being at the top of a ladder.
Amazing. I love it. Okay, so peanut butter doesn't go with tomato sauce, and if anyone disagrees with this,
need to get out.
We are talking outside. But it's something I've learned over time, and I'll elaborate on this one because I could look like a very strange person. But it's the idea that you're not meant for every brand or every workspace or for everyone. It's this idea that yes, I'm valuable, and it's I can bring whatever to the party, and that might be my best, but it might not be for whoever I'm trying to work with. So an example of this is if you draw butterflies every day and that's your thing, that's amazing, and you're really good at it, you're skilled, you're probably not going to get the job for like sneaker design or designing cars. And it's something I learned the hard way. My work used to be a lot more drawn and a bit darker, and a lot more darker when I was my angsty teen self, which was still fine. I love that work. I still think it's some of the best work I've ever done. I then got this job with Woolworths, and everything changed because they were like, okay, cool, we need you to draw like botanicals for our packaging. And I was like, cool, here's my portfolio. Have a look. And they were just like, wow. Oh. I asked for a shot, and I was like, let me just try and do botanicals. And it ended up working out. To say thank you for that offer or for that job, I wanted to give them a print. So I went to my archive of my dark work, and I took it to the lady, and I was like, hey, just want to say thanks, here's a print. And she said, wow, technically amazing. Would I hang that up in my house? No, it's way too scary. And that triggered something in my mind where I was like, oh, okay, cool. Even though I know this work is fire, it just doesn't gel with certain people. And I then went on this long journey trying to find brands and people that would kind of, how can I say, what's the word? Where it goes with gel, I guess. That trying to find clients and people to work with that gel with my work. And I think when I started doing that, that's when things started changing for the better, because now I was talking to people that were actually looking for the work that I do. And it's not to say that don't just go asking for work by anyone, but I think it's kind of know your niche and what realm you play in. And once you can identify that, you then go forth and conquer. And I think when we go back to values, understanding who you are as an artist and what you want to do, it helps you to find people. So a funny story before we go into Q&As, I would hunt people on LinkedIn, and I think it's something all of us creative people should always be proactive in your work, but also be proactive in your search for work. So hunt people on LinkedIn or Google, and it's if you want to work with an art director from Ogilvy, I search art director.
Tell them how you properly stalked someone.
Oh yeah, okay. So I found this art director from this company, big corporate, and I was like, okay, how do I work with them? I then found their email address, and I was like, no, I found their name on LinkedIn, and I was like, cool, call them. So I called the number, and I got through to the receptionist, and she's like, hey, what you trying to do? What are you looking for? And I'm like, Adam. And she goes, who's Adam? I'm like, no, he's the art director. I just need his email address. I met him at a bar, and he said I should send my work. And she goes, oh, how does he look? And I'm like, white guy, brown hair. I just need his number. I need his email. And she goes, no problem, putting you through. And she puts me through, and I'm like, hey, Adam, nice to meet you. I was meant to send my portfolio to you, and here I am. And he's like, who are you? And I'm like, no, I met you at that bar, and you said I should send you my work. And it was this funny story, but that interaction led to a 3-year contract with this company, and we did a lot of work together. But it was, yeah, just a funny example of, I guess, being proactive. Maybe don't stalk people or don't. But I think claim what is yours. But yes, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristen and Russell. I think that the thing that I keep thinking now is like, who are you going to phone?
Yeah.
And tell the story of who you met at the bar. But I think we all have those stories of people whose work we see and who we admire from afar and who we think, yeah, one day I really, really want to work with this person. I think for me, it's always been to kind of make like a human connection first before the work happens. But I think there's so many different kinds of ways to connect with people.
Yeah.
And I think what you've offered today is such an expansive discussion of how to take your work in different directions. From your dark teen years to your botanicals, and Kristen, from your marketing future CEO life to now, essentially being an artist and figuring out a way through a brand new terrain and also changing a value system at the same time. I think a lot of us, like, you're like ambitious, you're like, I'm gonna be on top. And then, you grow up and you go, maybe I just want like the work to matter. Something I've been thinking about is legacy and longevity. Like, does this have legacy and longevity? When I look back at like 80 years old, well, I think this was a great thing. So I think that you've given us a lot to ponder and to think about. I'm going to open it to the floor because we don't have a ton of time, and I know that there are a lot of questions. We already have 3, 4, 5.
Okay. How's it, Russell?
Hey, man.
Thank you for the presentation, man. It makes a lot of sense and really eye-opening and reassuring as well. I just have one fundamental question in reference to really solidifying your relations between your fellow creatives and associates. How's that relation has been for you to that sense of influence within your final execution? How, like, for instance, your relations between Seth and Garabo, because I've seen how close Garabo and Seth's work kind of bounce back and forth within your own personal ether. How's that been?
Sorry, I just didn't get that.
Sorry. Yes, I'm holding the mic inappropriately. I'm just blocking it. No worries. So your relation between Seth and Garabo and your collaborative and even, how's that professionally influenced your final execution and bounced off back and forth?
I think, with Seth and Garabo, we all talk. I think for the last 4 or 5 years, we've been helping each other, talking to each other, sharing work. I think that's been the most empowering thing through that whole friendship and that dynamic, is that we share work with each other that we're working on. And it's hey, what do you think of this? Does that answer the brief? Do you think my side of it is do you think people will like this? But having that network, I think your values then all kind of become the same, and you all have the same goal. And I think for us, the 3 of us, it's our values lie in okay, cool, we didn't have the older generation share too much with us back in the day. And we've taken up the task of trying to then share as much now with the younger generation of illustrators coming in, and really trying to be mentor figures, so we can kind of open gates that weren't open before, and then also just share knowledge, I guess. But yeah.
Okay. Coming in, sorry, thank you, Kirsten and Russell for this brilliant presentation. My name is Chati Munyaradzi Chatikobo with Cultural Policy and Management Department at Wits School of Arts. Firstly, to say this is an amazing conversation and very interesting connections. But I have 2 questions which are related in one way or the other. The first question is around negotiation that happens between you and the brand. So the question is, when and how do you negotiate and compromise in terms of your creative process? Is it at the beginning when you negotiate the deal, or during the process of considering that creativity is fluid, and sometimes things come up from your presentation, things come up as you are drawing or designing something? When exactly do you negotiate and compromise? That's question number 1. Number 2 is around the values. From what people shared, values are often humane and coming from a point of ethical consideration.
Yeah.
And business and brands tend to be capitalistic, aggressive, and pushing for profits. And sometimes less humane, and I'm very careful to say sometimes, less humane. How do you then find your balance between such an aggressive brand and the humane in Kirsten and Russell? Thank you.
Cool. I'm going to go to question 1, question 2. So, so with the first question, and when it comes to compromise, that compromise happens most times on like budget and the work. I try not to do both too much, but it's inevitable that it's going to happen. So I think it's about like being honest about what you want to do. So when it comes to the money part, I'm always trying to secure that as much as possible, because I think it's like, I know what I want for this. It's like, that same client isn't going to the doctor asking for like a 40% discount because they don't have the money for it. So I've learned that. I've learned the hard way. And now in my career, like 8 years later, I give my price and I try to be fair as possible. And it's like, I try to go, okay, cool, like this is on an industry standard, like how much you can get out of that. I'm willing to kind of maybe throw in something extra there. That might be to secure just to like make that relationship a bit more solid. When it comes to the work part, I think that's where like the value part comes into the conversation, when I say, but I really want to create this with you, and you need to trust me, knowing that I'm going to do my best for this project, but just like trust me, and let's not have your accountant telling me like how to be an illustrator. And that happens quite a bit. So I push back quite a bit on both ends. But I'm always trying to be considerate of like, as an illustrator, I am a commercial artist, so I'm not making art for the sake of art. I'm making art for the sake of commercial gain. So that is top of mind always. So yeah, my little compromise.
Yeah, and I think from the brand side, you are right. I think I'll say some brands as well, but brands they're a business, and they are looking for the best option for them and not always putting the artist's interests or taking those into account. So as a creative, you really do have to push for yourself and stand your ground. And I think there's a lot of education that still needs to happen in the brand world and in agencies, just of how to work with artists and how to work with creatives, how to give them the respect that is due to them and their work. And I've seen Russ do it quite a lot, like if he's working with an agency or brand and something's not going right, or they are asking for too much, trying to change, or not letting him have that integrity of his work, he asks to like call a meeting and essentially educate them on how this is my work and this is how I want to work and this is how I want to keep it and maintain my integrity.
Yeah, I'm spicy with it. I will tell that brand. Like, hey, I don't think you understand creatives. Let's have a meeting so I can educate you guys.
I think that is where we have to close. I know you have a lot more questions for Russell and for Kristen.
Oh, can we do one more question? Sorry.
Okay.
One more.
Are you trying to be spicy with it with me? Okay, let's be spicy with it. Let's do this one more question.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to ask this question. My name is Matt, and I work for African Leadership Academy. I have this amazing job of leading an alumni network of creatives for them. And a lot of my work involves mentoring young artists right at the beginning of their career journey. And just to touch on your point on and fighting for one's value, or demanding, I think is the word you used. A lot of the time, in my personal experience, there's a power dynamic, between you as someone delivering art and the person paying. And based on where you are in your career, I struggle sometimes to mentor these young artists and have them kind of think about this balance between patience and waiting for opportunities to open up for them, but at the same time, having them have the courage and the confidence to decide when something's not serving them anymore, and moving on to another opportunity. So my question is, like, in your experience, what is that balance? Because like I said in the beginning with the power dynamic, a lot of the time you want to say, actually, this is not serving in me anymore, but you don't have the next already bagged. So just want to engage you on the demand and demanding your value.
Okay, cool. I'll be quick with this one. Quick. But I've definitely gone through that, and I think I demanded my value, and I was like, no, I want this for myself at a very young age, working for a illustration studio in Cape Town. And I ended up going you know what, this isn't serving me, I'm gonna just call it now, it's killing me, killing my soul. And I left, and I had no idea what was going on, and all my friends were in 9-to-5s, they were secure. I was sitting with an empty bank account, but with this really, really hopeful heart of don't worry, it's gonna come through. And it was a long journey, and it's when I talk about demanding value, I think there is a very big layer of privilege that covers that statement, but I think we can still demand it and be you know what, but that's really what I want to do. So it's I don't know, it's a tricky one, because it's you can say yes, demand your value now, and then everyone's jobless. So that's the scary part of it on the other side. But I think when we do that, we prove something to ourselves, and that allows us to go forth with this strong passion to just try and make it out there. I think that's what we're all trying to do. And but I'll jump into that conversation with you after as well.
Yeah. I think that, what I've taken away from this, and what I take away generally from life, is do the work and the work will carry you.
Yeah.
And, build a community of people who committed to that work as well. Thank you so much, Kristen and Russell, for an incredible presentation.